Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Dill, we've talked extensively about this Missouri program over the last couple of weeks and months, and just what a good job Coach Drink and the staff have done of really building a roster that's top end of the SEC heading into 2024. The combination of using the high school recruiting ranks, supplementing that with the transfer portal, and as you kind of fill out the top 10 players for this Missouri program, you have the top end talent, guys that you're certainly thinking of, obviously Brady Cook, Luther Burden. But my biggest takeaway is very similar to where we were with this Missouri program 12 months ago and saying this team is so dangerous in the SEC because it's complete. You look top to bottom of this roster. It's not only deep, but they don't really have any holes in this roster heading into 2024. Want to get into our top 10 players for this Missouri program heading into 2024. Fired up to get into it. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys and to the Missouri fans. I mean, this program was a blast to talk about in 2023. It's been extremely fun to talk about in the transfer portal, on the high school recruiting trail. Y'all continue to show a ton of love, a ton of support to the fellas. Can't thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly, would love to hear some feedback from our list, whether you agree with the boys, whether you disagree. We learn a ton from you guys. We love talking ball with you guys in the comment section. Let it fly on some players that we might be sleeping on. And Dill, before we get into the top 10 list, let's talk about some guys that we didn't throw in the top 10, but I think you and I both agree could certainly be top 10 players for this Missouri program in the middle of October here.
And I think really what's one theme you look at with some of these transfers they take is they're taking some guys with unbelievable athletic upside, but guys I don't think you've totally seen max out in any sense of the word. Darius Smith, you really haven't seen a ton at Georgia. He's in a little bit of a different boat. That's a really, really crowded room, obviously. But Zion Young and Chris McClellan are two guys who have played a fair amount of ball at Michigan State and Florida, respectively. You've seen really good moments. And I think when you watch kind of from a distance, you're like, oh, you kind of expect to see some production. You go in, you look at these guys' stats, you're like, oh, this has not been consistent enough. You haven't really gotten enough out of these two. But I'm kind of looking at what Missouri's done and how well they've been able to develop guys throughout their program. And if they can just tap into a bit of this potential, I mean, those guys
very in line with how Coach Drink goes about recruiting the high school ranks as well. Like, hey, we are going to bet on the athletes. We're going to get them in this program, and we're going to create good football players. And I think that's what Missouri's been doing. I think it's clearly been working Saturdays on the football field. The last guy we got to shout out, Williams Benary. You can't put him in the top 10 because he's a true freshman, hasn't played a snap of college football yet. But if you told me he was a top 5 player on this Missouri program year one as a freshman, I wouldn't necessarily be that surprised. Dill, let's get into our top 10 players, and let's go to your personal favorite here. That's Torino Pride Jr. You wanted him higher on this list. I'll give you the T-box. Torino Pride Jr., how are we feeling about him clocking in at 10?
I mean, a guy I think you saw the development at Clemson, frankly. I think injuries obviously derailed him to an extent. I think you can look at a guy who, again, has the athleticism, very long, very good mover. I think the ball skills got better and better throughout his time at Clemson. I think he started as a freshman, really seemed to struggle at that point. By the time you saw him playing a bit more as a sophomore, I think he was getting a hold of it a little bit. Just injuries, again, got to him a little bit. You look at what Missouri's done with defensive backs. I don't think there's been a program in the country who's done a better job developing that position, training guys to be very disciplined, very smart. I'm really excited to see what he can do in this.
Such a great landing spot for Torino Pride Jr. Like, you look at the development of guys like Chris Havens-Drains and Ennis Rackus, right? They've done such a phenomenal job creating just elite cornerbacks in the SEC. And I think Torino Pride Jr. might be the most gifted out of those names that we just named. The upside is so high for a guy like Torino Pride Jr., who I think a lot of people get it twisted. Torino Pride Jr. didn't get squeezed out of this Clemson program. He played some really good football for Clemson during his first 2 years. You said it best, the injuries during year 2 kind of derailed his time at Clemson. I think he finds a great landing spot, and this is a guy that, again, could certainly be a top 5 player in the middle of October when we check back in on this list, going to number 9. And steady Eddie Theo Weason. I was really rooting for this kid as he got to Missouri, former 5-star from Oklahoma at the wide receiver spot, and really emerged as a quality target in this Missouri passing attack, almost 700 yards going into year 2, continuing to build that chemistry with Brady Cook. Only had 1 drop last year, 32 first down catches. He was an extremely reliable wide receiver too, and you're going to continue to try to get the football to Theo Weiss because Luther Burns going to get a lot of attention. I think Theo Weiss is in line for another big-time year for this Missouri program. And Dill, going to number 8, and a guy that I wanted to throw on this list because of Coach Strink in the track record with lower level of college football running backs. We just saw Coach Strink and this coaching staff go to the Division II ranks, land a guy in Cody Schrader. Cody Schrader becomes one of the best running backs in the SEC during that 2023 season. You look at a guy in Marcus Carroll who is going to be running behind one of the best offensive lines in the SEC. A guy that's a little bit of a muscle hamster, deals with contact exceptionally well, makes people miss at the second level. I'm fired up to see what Marcus Carroll can do heading into his first year with the Missouri Tigers.
And I think you're right. That's an important thing you need to be able to do at Missouri. You saw how good Schrader was being able to play through contact, how much that was able to make him make some of those big plays because they do open up some creases. I think that's kind of how that stretch zone they like to run kind of operates a little bit. So, again, his ability to kind of run through those tackles at the second level at times, I think will do him wonders, especially when you kind of get in this Missouri running game that I think really thrives when you can make that one cut, make one guy miss, and then go.
And a quick comment on this Missouri running back room. Another guy I'm kind of fired up about is Nate Noel. Kind of 2 different flavors of running backs. Marcus Carroll, much more of that one cut, no nonsense, downhill running back. Nate Noel, a little bit on the smaller side coming from App State, but a ton of juice in space. I kind of like how the skill sets really balance each other out in that Missouri running back room. And Dill, let's get into one of the more intriguing transfers that we saw, and that was former Oklahoma offensive lineman Caden Green, who, so with the addition of Marcus Bryant, who I think we're going to talk about in a little bit, who's going to probably start at that left tackle spot. I think you have a lock with Membu at the right tackle spot. We kind of assumed Caden Green was going to play tackle. I think there's a good chance that he might kick into guard going into 2024. And Dill, an era where you look at so many Power 5 programs across the country desperate for starting caliber tackles. The Missouri Tigers head into 2024 with 3 damn good tackles in Caden Green, Marcus Bryant, and Membu at that right tackle spot.
It'll be interesting to see how they shuffle this out, especially with Caden Green and Membu. I think both being very capable of playing guard. I don't think you can take Membu off that right tackle spot because of how good he was. So I suspect Caden Green's probably me kicking in, playing guard for a year, maybe moving back out to tackle. But again, I think he's kind of acquitted himself and proved that he can play that spot. Again, I think you probably had your questions coming from Oklahoma, seeing some moments where you're like, maybe this is a bit more of a guard, maybe not the feet of a tackle. But I think when you watch that spring game, you can get enough of a sense that, again, with the length, the size, the strength, and his ability to move for pretty good for that size, I'm pretty comfortable with him playing tackle. Again, probably going to end up playing guard this year, and he'll be a really, really good guard at that. But eventually, I'm sure he's going to kick back out, and he'll be really good there too.
Hey, when you could get a versatile offensive lineman that if you need to play him tackle for a few games, then kick him to guard, move him all around the offensive line. You talk about trying to build depth along the line of scrimmage, having versatility, that's absolutely massive. I think Caden Green has that kind of versatility. Going to number 6, and let's talk another one of our favorites, and that is Dalen Carnell. Another example of just the defensive backs for this Missouri program over the last couple of years, just pure development. And Dalen Carnell, I kind of call him just that chess piece, right? Plays that slot role or kind of plays that nickel role, sometimes as a box safety. 2 things that I really like. Really comfortable in coverage, whether it's man coverage, whether it's dropping back in zone. But when you're going to have a slot defender or a box safety come up and spend so much time around the line of scrimmage, they got to be physical up there. You look at Dalen Carnell, he can certainly play along the line of scrimmage. And in an era of offenses where we're trying to get as much speed as we can on the field, you're trying to match that as an opposing defense. Having a guy that gives you that coverage ability, but also can give you run support, massive asset for this Missouri defense. I think Dalen Carnell, one of the best players on this Missouri defense here.
I think you hit on it, just how well they've developed these defensive backs, how smart they are, how good they are at getting in throwing lanes, getting in front of passes. I think you'd like to see Dalen Carnell take that step, maybe take the ball a little bit away. But when you're seeing 7 pass breakups from that slot corner position, especially, or primarily, I should say, That's a big time number. I think he can add those turnovers and become like one of their real stalwarts. And he already obviously is, but maybe one of the better guys.
And what made him kind of come up to number 6, which I think number 6 might be high for some Missouri fans. Him rushing the passer, like coming off those nickel defender blitzes, like this dude closes distance exceptionally well. 13 quarterback hurries. That was third on this Missouri defense. I think he can do so many different things for this Missouri defense. Fired up about him. Going to our top 5, then another guy that I wasn't sure where I wanted him in this list. Went back and watched some more Missouri games this morning, and I was like, this kid's got to be a top five player for this Missouri program. Kind of gets overshadowed a little bit because of Darius Robinson, how good Darius Robinson was last year. Johnny Walker not only can get it done as a pass rusher, and that's kind of where you always gravitate to first when you're evaluating edge rushers. 20 quarterback hurries, second on the team. What kind of made him a top 5 player for me, what he can do against the run. And kind of a spitting image of Darius Robinson. Heavy hands, long, knows how to get off blocks. He dominates offensive linemen at the point of attack. He sheds blocks phenomenally well. Johnny Walker, a guy that can get it done against the run, get it done against the passer. You don't see many edge rushers excel in both of those fields. Top 5 player for this Missouri team. Sneaky one at that, but a top 5 player.
And again, when you kind of look and see those QB hurries, those run stops kind of much higher than the sack and tackle production, I think that's kind of when you get that sense, well, again, he's probably not that Von Miller type pass rusher that's really smooth, can win on the edge really effectively. But again, when you can be that disruptive, you're just, I mean, it's hard to run to your side when you're that big, that long, that athletic. You can get out there and make a lot of plays. Again, kind of how Darius Robinson was so disruptive for them. Johnny Walker, again, a little bit overshadowed, but kind of played a similar role. I think he'll really help guys like Darius Smith get really nice numbers because, again, when you can be disruptive in the pocket, push pockets, I think that really helps your kind of more premier athlete edge rusher. So I'm interested to see how those guys pair up with each other and whether they can kind of put those sack numbers up.
You make a really good point. Johnny Walker, much better on the film than what the box score says. The box score is pretty damn good. 9.5 tackles for a loss, 5 sacks. Those are not slouch numbers in the SEC. But then when you watch the film, say this guy dominates a little bit more than what shows up on the box score. I am a massive fan of Johnny Walker. Let's go to number 4. And again, what makes this Missouri team so special is we are going to talk about in their top 4 players, 2 offensive tackles, a quarterback, and a wide receiver. I'm guessing you guys can kind of fill in the blanks here, but those are the premium positions. Those are the positions that win you football games. Missouri's elite at the positions you need to be elite in. Talk about Marcus Bryant, a name that Missouri fans might not be too familiar with. I'm a massive fan of this kid. I thought he was one of the best tackles, probably the best tackle available during that spring transfer portal window. 385 pass pro snaps last year, only gave up 2 sacks, 18 quarterback hurries. I think the biggest thing for me is 2,300 snaps at the tackle position. Like, you do not see many tackles bring that kind of experience at the college football level. I think Marcus Bryant brings that. I think he is kind of a staple left tackle. I think he's going to be damn good for Missouri in 2024.
Yeah, I mean, I know. And we kind of talked about like Mizzou, obviously Caden Green, maybe like they can play tackle. Will they play tackle at the NFL level? It's hard to say perhaps. But Marcus Bryant is kind of the opposite, where he is just a very clean, extraordinarily good athlete, long, kind of looks exactly like what you want from your left tackle. Again, does he dominate in the run game the way those other 2 guys do? Maybe not. But again, when you want a left tackle who you can leave out there and not really have to worry about, I think Marcus Bryant's kind of your guy right here.
I think you nailed it. Marcus Bryant is a spitting image of what you're looking for at that tackle spot. He's lean, he's long, he's big. I think he goes 6'8", 320, but he carries that 320 exceptionally well. Almost looks like he should be playing tight end or at center for this Missouri basketball team. Big fan of Marcus Bryant. Number 3, Dill, a guy that we've talked about a lot, and I mean, quite honestly, could be the number 2 player on this Missouri program. Armand Membu. And yeah, maybe a guard at the NFL level, but an elite right tackle for this Missouri program. Low-key was just as good, if not better, than Javon Foster. And that's saying something, because I was a big fan of Javon Foster. But you take a look at that right tackle play, he was not really solid in pass pro, right? Only gave up 2 sacks, 12 quarterback hurries on over 430 pass pro snaps. But what this kid does in the run game, just moving bodies effortlessly off the line of scrimmage. Not many bigger fans than the Rock Boys with Armand Membu for this Missouri program.
Yeah, I think that's something you kind of can, especially at the college level, you can mask maybe not having those pure tackle traits with the length, the athleticism you maybe want. But when you're as strong as Mendel, it doesn't matter. I mean, you just see when he gets his hands on guys, really, really hard to disengage with him, really tough. I think they were describing it as like that barroom brawler kind of in the spring game. And that when you're watching the film, that's kind of how he does it. Maybe not the cleanest technique at that tackle spot, but he gets it done so strong. And I mean,
those hands are something else. Like that's why I kind of like him as a guard at the NFL levels. Like when he's playing in that phone booth, like that close distance, when he has hands on guys, I mean, he's dominant. Like the strongest hands that you'll see at the college football level. Going to number 2, Brady Cook. And before we even get into the stats of Brady Cook, which are damn good, right? 3,300 yards, 21 touchdowns, 6 picks, a 66% completion percentage. Now I'm just listing off the stats before I wanted to say this before I got on the stats, but since I'm already in the stats, phenomenal numbers, can push the ball down the field exceptionally well, a 46% completion percentage going 20 plus yards down the field. This kid, importantly, he's a gamer. Like, and that's something that's so important at that quarterback spot. He does not necessarily always make it look pretty. He's not necessarily going to be that number 1 NFL draft pick. But if you are asking me to take a quarterback to win me a lot of games in the SEC, Brady Cook's going to be at the top of the list, or at least one of the quarterbacks at the top of the list. Still ran for 33 first downs. A guy that, if it's not there, can be tough, can be an athlete, move the chains. It's not always going to look pretty, but he's going to get it done for this Missouri program. I think Coach Drink would echo this. Not another guy in the country he would want leading this program into 2024 than quarterback Brady Cook.
Is it maybe a little semblance of like what we think of Jordan Travis at Florida State, where you
a little bit,
play early, you kind of saw the polish wasn't exactly there, but you always saw the gamer, that guts, that heart, that ability to like just kind of figure it out even when it wasn't totally there. I think Brady Cook's got a little bit more upside. I think he throws the ball a little bit better, has more of the traits you want to see from your quarterback. But again, you kind of saw in 22, Brady Cook was that guy where it wasn't all coming together, but you saw him gutting it out, kind of finding ways to get them down the field a little bit. And then in 23, he really took off, had a very dominant season. When I'd say kind of tighten up what you want from your quarterback, can dial it in on the pass throw. Some of those deep balls to Luther Burden, those are as good of a throw as you'll see in all college football. So I really like the progression he's made under Drinkwitz, and I'm very excited to.
I'll say hand up. I just got to own it up to it. I was a guy that when Jake Garcia committed to Missouri, I said, I think Jake Garcia starts. And it was a lot because of what you just said. In 2022, it didn't always look pretty. And I thought Jake Garcia, a guy that probably has a little bit more arm talent, comes in, leads this Missouri program. Boy, did I miss the boat on that one. I was right on Missouri being a damn good team in 2023. Was wrong on the starting quarterback deal. Brady Cook proved me wrong. One of my favorite players in college football. Going to number 1, no surprise to anybody listening. That's a Missouri fan. Luther Burden. I don't even know if you can name a better wide receiver in the country going into 2024 than Luther Burden. He just does everything at such a high level, right? He can go up, be physical at the catch point. He can work vertically down the field. But I think my favorite trait with Luther Burden is what he can do after the catch. Like, this is one of those guys that, hey, we're just going to try to get the ball to in space, let him go to work. 20 missed tackles for 724 yards after the catch for this Missouri program. 2 things that really stand out. I guess one, really, he can just impact this offense from so many different ways. There's so many different things you can do to scheme him up and get him involved in this offense. And when you have the best athlete on the field that can get schemed up in a multitude of different ways, you're looking at just one of the biggest difference makers in college football with Luther Burden.
Yeah, I mean, really not that much to add. I think any Missouri fan or any fan of college football in general knows this guy is one of those premier wide receivers. Been doing it since he was a freshman. And you're right. At the end of the day, whether he's catching the ball deep, whether he's just running routes, getting a lot of separation, whether he's taking the ball out of the backfield and going for touchdowns, just does everything really, really at a high level. No holes in his game. He's the best player.
I won't make you answer this, but I was just kind of thinking when I was putting this together, like, how many are you taking a wide receiver over Luther Burden? Like, you're talking about, all right, you got to put together a team to go win a national championship. You can pick any wide receiver to bring into your offense. I'm not saying I'll pick Luther Burden because I haven't really put enough thought into it, Luther Burden's at the top of the list in terms of guys you want to build an offense around. Missouri's got a good one here with Luther. That'll do it. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Again, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to y'all later.